The midday sun hung high over Abuja, casting harsh shadows across the dusty street. Children's laughter rang out as a group of kids kicked a faded football on the dry red earth. Bob stood at the sidelines, a rare smile softening his usually stern face. "Over here, pass it here," he called, his deep voice warm and encouraging as he interacted freely with the children. With them, he was gentle and talkative, his guarded silence dissolving into laughter. Across the yard, Bob's wife, Aisha, observed silently. She leaned against the doorway of their modest bungalow, arms crossed. She saw how alive Bob became around the children. He laughed at their jokes, hoisted little Tade onto his shoulders. But the moment Aisha's cousin Bimbo joined them, Bob's laughter stopped. He quickly set Tade down, gave Bimbo a curt nod, and stepped back into silence. "Bob, you're so good with them," Bimbo said, offering a friendly smile. Bob replied, eyes downcast. An awkward pause followed. Bimbo gave up with a polite nod and moved on, leaving Bob in silence once more. Aisha sighed. This was the man she loved, kind-hearted deep down, she was sure, yet utterly distant with anyone his own age. With her, with family, with friends, Bob was a wall of quiet. He wasn't always cold or cruel in words. More often, he was simply absent. His silence was a constant third presence in their home, heavy and unyielding. "My sister called today," Aisha began softly. "She invited us to her wedding in Kaduna next month." Her voice trailed off. Bob didn't look up. He muttered. Aisha's heart squeezed. She set down her spoon and mustered her courage. "Bob," she began, hands trembling slightly. "We need to talk. I hardly know what's on your mind these days. You barely speak to me, to anyone. I feel so lonely, even when we're together." At that, Bob finally raised his eyes. His expression was not angry, but guarded and distant. "I talk when there's something to say," he replied quietly. Aisha's voice wavered. "We've been married 3 years, and I still feel like I hardly know you," she said, blinking back tears. "Don't you think there's something to say every day? Even just how your day went, or what you're feeling. I'm your wife, Bob. I want to share your life, not live around your silence." Bob pushed his plate away, the porcelain scraping on wood. I'm fine," he said almost too softly to hear. "There's nothing to discuss." She reached across the table to touch his hand. He stiffened, but didn't pull away. "You lost your job 2 months ago," Isha whispered. "You hardly spoke a word about it. My parents have been helping us out, and you haven't even properly talked to them either. They're worried about you. I'm worried about you." Bob's jaw tightened. He gently withdrew his hand and stood up. "I said I'm fine," he repeated, a hardened edge to his tone now. He picked up his plate and carried it to the sink, turning his back on her. Aisha's frustration overflowed. "Haba, Bob," she exclaimed, exasperated. "You're not fine. You haven't been fine for a long time. Why won't you let me in?" Her voice cracked on the question. Bob paused in the doorway, his broad shoulders rigid. For a moment it seemed as if he might respond, as if words were caught in his throat. But he just shook his head. "I don't want to talk about it," he said quietly. Without another word, he walked out of the room, leaving Aisha at the table with tears rolling down her cheeks into her untouched rice. That night, Aisha cried herself to sleep, her back turned to Bob's empty side of the bed. Bob sat outside on the dark porch, staring up at faint stars peeking through a dusty haze. His mind churned with thoughts he could never voice. Fears of inadequacy, of being judged, of not knowing how to express the storm inside him. But he kept those fears locked away, as he always did, behind the fortress of silence that had become his refuge and his curse. In time, Bob did find work again, thanks to the intervention of Aisha's family. Her father connected him with a job as a supervisor at a transport company and even lent Bob an old car to get back on his feet. With a steady income, life improved for a while. Within a year, through hard work, Bob earned a promotion. But as his fortunes rose, humility fell away. His confidence swelled into quiet arrogance. He began to forget how much he owed to those who had helped him. One evening, Bob hosted a small dinner to celebrate his new promotion. It was a rare occasion. He had invited his in-laws and his own parents. The group gathered in the cozy living room, making light conversation as a pot of agusi soup simmered on the stove. Bob's mother beamed with pride, and Aisha was cautiously optimistic that maybe tonight Bob would truly engage. Over dinner, Al-Haji Sul praised his son-in-law. "We thank God for this progress. Bob, you've really turned things around this year," he said warmly. Bob, who had been relatively quiet while others chatted, cleared his throat and sat a little straighter. "Yes, I have," he replied. "Hard work pays off. When I put my mind to something, I succeed." His tone carried an unfamiliar sharpness. Aisha gave him an uneasy smile. "Bob, Papa was just saying we're proud of you," she interjected gently. Bob nodded, but the smile he returned didn't reach his eyes. "I appreciate it," he said coolly. "It wasn't easy, but I got here on my own terms." A brief silence fell. Aisha's mother exchanged a concerned glance with her husband. Bob's father offered a polite chuckle. "Of course, son. We know you worked hard," he said. "Just remember, none of us succeed entirely alone." "With respect," Bob said, not sounding respectful at all, "I got the job myself and I excelled at it myself. I remember every late night I put in while others slept. Maybe some people didn't expect me to rise up, but I did. I'm not some charity case. I proved my worth on my own, and I don't owe anyone." A stunned silence fell over the table. Aisha's eyes brimmed with tears and she abruptly excused herself. Her mother hurried after her. The others soon made somber goodbyes. Within minutes, the dinner was over. Bob's in-laws and parents departed, wounded and disappointed in him. When the door closed on the last guest, the house plunged into an unbearable quiet. Bob stood in the emptiness, the weight of what he'd done slowly sinking in. He heard Aisha's muffled sobs from behind the bedroom door before silence fell again. He had wounded the person he loved most, and now he didn't know how to make it right. In the days that followed, Aisha's silence replaced Bob's. She spoke only when necessary, her warmth toward him gone. Bob retreated again into wordless guilt. He wanted to apologize, but he couldn't find the words or courage, and each day the gap between them widened. One humid evening, Bob came home from work to find Aisha sitting in the living room with a suitcase by her side. Her eyes were dry and her expression was calm, almost too calm. "Where are you going?" Bob asked quietly, dread coiling in his stomach. "I'm leaving, Bob," Aisha said at last, her voice steady. Bob's heart thudded. He opened his mouth, but no words came. He stepped forward, reaching as if to touch her shoulder, then stopped himself. "Aisha?" he finally managed, his voice cracking with panic. It was the most emotion she had heard from him in ages. She held up a hand, stopping him. "Please, let me speak since you won't." Her tone wasn't angry. It was tired, utterly drained. "For years I begged you to let me in," Aisha said, her voice trembling. "I have cried, prayed, waited. But you shut me out at every turn. I thought if I loved you enough, you might change. But your silence is who you are, and I can't live the rest of my life like this, as a stranger to my own husband." Tears welled in Bob's eyes, hot and uninvited. He felt desperation rising like a tide. "Please, don't go," he whispered, barely audible. Aisha gave a sad, small smile. "If only you had said those words even once before, things might have been different." She lifted the handle of her suitcase. "I truly hope you find whatever it is that keeps you so locked up inside. But I have to take care of my own heart now. I won't let your silence destroy me." She moved to the door and Bob felt as if his feet were glued to the floor. This was his last chance to break free of the silence that had held him hostage, to call out, to say, "I'm sorry, I love you, please stay." The words screamed inside his head, but as always, none passed his lips. He could only stand there, choking on emptiness. Aisha waited a moment, eyes searching his face one final time. Bob's voice failed him. With a weary sigh, she opened the door and walked out into the twilight, leaving Bob standing mute in the dimly lit room. When the door clicked shut, Bob sank to his knees, burying his face in his hands. The silence in the apartment was deafening. In that hollow quiet, he finally wept. Tears of regret, of heartbreak, of years of things unsaid. But no one was there to hear it. In the aftermath, Bob's world fell apart. With Aisha gone, Her family cut ties, and even Bob's friends and neighbors drifted away. His withdrawn, bitter demeanor began to affect his work. Within months, he lost his job, landing him back where he started, unemployed and entirely alone. When divorce papers arrived, he signed them in silence, knowing he had destroyed his own happiness. Now in the quiet of his small one-room flat, Bob sits alone most evenings. The walls echo with the silence he has cultivated all his life. In that silence, he replays memories of happier times. His wedding day, the laughter of children he once cherished, the voices of family he took for granted. He speaks to those ghosts in his mind sometimes, saying all the things he should have said. Thank you for helping me. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I hurt you. Please don't leave me. But those words come too late, heard by no one but the empty walls. In the end, Bob's life stands as a cautionary tale. His silence, once a shield, became a prison that cost him everything dear. He learned too late that love and family cannot survive in a void of unspoken words. The tragedy of Bob's story urges us to reflect on our own lives, to cherish the people who care for us, to swallow our pride and communicate our feelings before silence drives them away. Let the silence of Bob be a lesson. Openness and humility may be hard, but loneliness born of prideful silence is far harder to endure. The story of Bob reminds us that silence can wound deeper than words. Let us learn to speak love, gratitude, and humility before it's too late. If you enjoyed this story and would like more real-life inspired tales, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Thank you for watching.